Well, you have to be pretty much live under a rock, Chris, to not see all the news about the attack in Israel. It's got the attention of the national media, the international media, and for very good reason. It's another example of this region which has been locked in conflict since before you and
millennia.
I were alive. Yeah,
Millennia, thousands of years.
yeah, and it's not ending anytime soon. There's a lot of geopolitical takes we could make on this. A lot of folks are trying to discuss the different factions. That's not really quite as much my interest, although I was interesting to see Lindsey Graham immediately come out and say one person that we have to bomb, and I think he probably even said nuke, knowing Lindsey, but I'm not sure, was Iran. It sure seems like this has become a proxy war between America. Let me rephrase it. It could become a proxy war between America and Iran, the same way that Ukraine is currently an obvious proxy war between America and Russia. So there's a lot there that we could talk about.
And we all know that there's not a Middle Eastern country, maybe with Israel accepted, that Lindsey Graham would not like to turn into a glass factory because that's what Lindsey Grahamnesty is. So
yeah, exactly. But to me, the real takeaway here is this is another example, albeit a large scale example of the utter failure of gun control. We hear every day from these little twits like AOC, all the way down to our state legislatures, up to Kamala Harris, a bigger twit, all these people, sniping at us why we think we have the right, let alone the need to have a rifle. And then we see photographs, that one from the overhead shot where they're coming on paragliders. We see shots like this out of Israel, where the entire country seemed to come to a standstill as they watch these paragliders right here on the screen descend into their country with two-man teams of Palestinians who then hit the soft targets across Israel and murdered. The last count I saw was over 1,300 citizens, including right now 27 Americans in this country. This should, but I know it won't, settle the question forever as to why Americans need to have access to rifles.
Yeah. This is what I was talking about with a buddy of mine just the other day. Like, the argument for gun control is freaking dead. First, you had Joe Biden leaving billions of dollars worth of real weapons of war on the streets of Afghanistan as we pulled out of that crap show. Then we had, the global fake news media, shouting to the kingdom come how awesome it was to see the Ukrainians, all these citizens taking up assault rifles to go and defend their country. And now it's like whipsaw with the radical left. Like, wait, what are we supposed to believe here? Why are assault weapons good for them, but never for us? And so here we have the latest example of exactly why citizens armed to the teeth is exactly what you need in a free society.
Well, I think a lot of people just honestly didn't know that Israel has California level or beyond levels of gun control. You would think in a country that's wrapped in conflict for their entire existence, this would be one of the most well-armed countries on earth, with everybody having access to firearms. We've all seen the memes. To be totally honest, we have probably put some of those memes on our own Facebook pages for our gun rights organizations in the past. But the reality is that citizens do not have access to firearms in almost any situation in Israel. And then we see these photographs, like the one right here. You see then what happens. These guys come in with these paragliders, two-man teams, one guy the rifle. Here's a different shot right here. One guy the rifle, one guy flying it. And they know this is a soft target, just like many places in America are soft targets where the people simply cannot fight back. The idea that this country, above all, is disarmed is well, it's become a national disgrace and frankly, an embarrassment, even worse, for Israel over the last week, why their own citizens are not allowed to carry firearms.
Yeah, and if you go back and look, that picture is actually quite fascinating. Let me pull this up here again. You can see that those guys have GoPros on their rigs the entire time. They're probably feeding those video streams live back to headquarters at Hamas HQ. But yeah, and I don't think this is just an Israel deal. It's shocking that we sit here and we're like, oh my gosh. But I think only America, I think it's the only country in the world where your average citizen has the right to own the firearms that we do. And it's because simply our founding fathers saw And they had just gone through this period of conflict where we bought our freedom from the world's superpower. They knew that guns were necessary for people to remain free. So you look at Israel, yeah, they didn't have guns because eventually the military industrial complex of that country, their security, their intelligence agencies, all these entities develop God complexes after a while. And they don't want the regular peons to have access to these kinds of firearms.
Right. So, I mean, even their own media now is aware of this, and they're celebrating, and rightfully so, cases of your word was peons, of the citizens grabbing firearms. There's a very popular woman right now in Israel. I've got her name here. It's Lieberman, if I can get the first name. 25-year-old gal. She's in charge of village security for her small town. There's a little screenshot here. This woman hears gunshots, and she's the head of their town securities team. And you'd think that maybe she would have a rifle in her house, but no, she doesn't. And so everybody else sat and waited for the IDF to arrive, which of course was too late. She ran to a nearby armory, grabbed a rifle for herself and 11 of her friends. And these 12 people took up positions around their town. She herself, first time I lost him, it's Lieberman. She took up a spot and she killed 5 of these Palestinians on her own, and the rest of her village combined with these 11 other rifles, and they stopped the attack in their small town. And she's being hailed as a hero, and of course she is, and she should be. Another case here of a general in Israel who's retired now, who did not have the option to own a rifle of his own. And so he has his service handgun that he got at his retirement, and he uses that to charge Hamas, and he killed people as well and led a counterattack. But that's the whole point, that they're having to highlight these cases of people who were otherwise unarmed, who had to find a gun because they were not legally allowed to have them. It's an embarrassment now, and that's why they're coming back so fast right now, trying to change that with this new policy to hand out firearms to citizens in Israel.
I don't know, but when I see somebody like this rolling into my neighborhood from on high, the last thing I want to do is go grab my Glock 34. And yeah, it's a fantastic battle pistol, but it's nothing like a rifle if that's what you're up against. So yeah, I mean, for the average American right now, a guy like me to be able to go grab, I don't know, one of my 150 AR-15s and pass them out to my brothers and sisters. We have an advantage that we have to freaking fight like hell to maintain and keep.
Exactly. This is right now. This is in Israel today, or last week. The Minister of National Defense, he is now basically tripping over himself and trying to explain why citizens could not own firearms. Now they're passing them out to 10,000 of their citizens. It's ARs. It's it could be FNFALs, given that's Israel. Who knows? It's rifles. It's body armor. It's ammo. It's magazines. All the good stuff that Joe Biden and the radical left want to ban here in America. We keep coming to this point. I mean, this is exactly what they want to take away from us here in America, that they know now, and you mentioned Ukraine or in Israel, this is the tools that they need to stop these attacks. And Biden continues to be hell-bent on taking them from us, and we all know why.
When I see that, number one, it says civilian security teams. So I love seeing that. They're putting them right back into the hands of we the people, or their version of it in Israel.
Right.
But then you see that you get these images of Joe Biden sitting there with that stupid, dumbass look on his face where he's like, what do you need those weapons of war?
Yeah.
Hey, Dip Dunk, this is exactly why. And quite frankly, we could get into what the major threat levels are here in America, and I think we probably will here in just a minute. But maybe the threat from these little paragliders isn't as imminent here, but there's always the danger, and this is always the case in human history. 65 million dead people at a minimum in the 20th century will tell you that this is the case, but you're always worried first and foremost about your own government becoming tyrannical and turning on the people. But, we might even have additional people here in America right now, in addition to tyrannical governments.
Yeah, the first issue is always our own government. Our founders knew that. The second issue is oftentimes, at least in our lifetime, armed criminals. We all know that as well. The way down the tier is all the sports shooting issues. But you're right. I mean, more recently, the idea of hostile foreign actors on American soil. We talked yesterday, you and I on the phone, about how we grew up in the 80s. We grew up in a time where, I mean, it was Norman Rockwell, life that. You'd bike to school. We'd play little league games. We would hitchhike to the sand pit. We get rides from any one of 4 or 5 different, teammates, parents. Our parents never even knew who the heck we were riding to the games with, because as long as it was in town, it just didn't matter. Yeah. And we, of course, gave rides then to our friends, or our parents did. And I think, it actually was yesterday. We're talking about this situation in the Atlanta airport. Some absolutely, batshit crazy woman walked in there and she stabbed 2 people and stabbed a cop as well with a knife. She looks like an absolute walking zombie. Mm-hmm. And I think that, as I was telling you on the phone, like, I have lived a life of relative. I'm aware of overt things that look dangerous to me. I don't go in downtown Chicago very often. I was in Manhattan for work a while back, but I didn't stay around very long. I mean, you're aware of the general stuff, driving through cities and that kind of thing. Yeah. But to stand there at the airport line, for example, the TSA, I'm usually on my phone like everybody else. And the world, I think, as we know it, has allowed for that. Or it hasn't. Maybe I've just been lazy. It's allowed for that for the most part, but things are changing. And I think the main reason for it is our absolute, anti-Christian worldview. Now that the entire country, our government's been force feeding us in our schools for generations now. But that is, I think, in parallel with the absolute intentional actions by Joe Biden to destroy this country from within with his open borders policy. I mean, the amount of illegal immigration now, according to the news I saw last week, 5.8 million people have entered into America illegally in not even 3 years' time. It's impossible to even calculate this mentally, what this means for our country.
It's cultural suicide is what it is. And these aren't refugees. Everybody's been looking at the video footage of these military age people coming across into our borders. Like you were just talking about how things are changing so rapidly. Yeah. Just last night or early this morning, somebody at the Philadelphia airport, which I flew through the Philadelphia airport less than a month ago, they crashed their vehicle through a security gate. They stole. They attacked 2 police officers, stole one of their guns, shot the other one. And, this is happening. This is unraveling right in front of our eyes. And it's not because of the racists or the bigots that the radical left's liberal media is trying to make us all out to be.
No, I mean, I was just reading a report, I think yesterday. I have a screenshot here somewhere. It's right here. Of these 5.8 million illegal aliens, separate from the illegals are 70,000 what the government calls special interest aliens that have come into America over the past 2 years. The headline says attempted to enter, but the story makes it clear they have entered America. 70,000 special interest aliens. And what that means, this is from the Border Patrol and Customs office. This is Biden's people, just to be clear now. These are people who come from countries who are known to be state sponsors of or to harbor known terrorists. So these are the kind of countries that if you don't want to commit national suicide, you would like to protect your people from people in those countries. And at a very minimum, you want to be absolutely sure of who you're letting in from those countries. Are there good folks who want to flee? Of course there are. The problem is that there's no databases in Syria. There's no databases to check in the Sudan. You can't just go and do a NICS check on somebody from these countries, from Lebanon, and verify, oh yeah, he's fine, not a problem. The government has said themselves, in these special interest aliens, there are absolutely massive numbers of fighting age, military age males, 18 to 45, they say, and they have no way to vet them, no way to decide who they are. And this map here, I got to show this again. This map should just make every one of us stop and pause. It is, you use the phrase, Chris, national suicide. This is very real numbers, 5.8 million. Do the math. I mean, if 1% of those people are criminals, that's bad. If 1/10 of 1% have terrorist or violent inclinations, this is a absolute disaster. The count, you have that count, Chris, on the breakdown of where those people are coming in from?
I do. You want me to pop it up on the screen?
Yeah, sure. If you have it handy, do it.
Yeah, check this out, everybody. You're gonna freak.
Freak out. These are where they're coming in from. These are the special aliens. They're coming in from these countries, and they're not vetted. They're just not vetted. Now they made it clear that Turkey is a NATO ally, and so we're told that you can ignore Turkey. Don't worry about Turkey. They're fine. Yeah, whatever. BS. But the rest of these people, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan. These people.
I would also note that these are probably very low numbers, because these are the ones that they would likely then have had interactions with or know background details to some degree of which, but the border is wide open.
That was the whole point in the article I read, was that this is just the ones that come to the checkpoints.
Right, exactly.
5.8 million people total by estimate that have come through illegally. So we have no flipping clue how many of those people are violent, how many of them hold dangerous tendencies. I mean, Chris, you got your start in gun politics and Minnesota gun rights. I mean, it was a year ago in Shakopee, Minnesota, one of the most calm towns that I've ever been in at that time, and right south of the cities. A year and a half ago, this refugee, I think he was from Somalia, but I'm not 100% sure. He stopped his girlfriend at a red light. He found her car, pulls her over, and he cuts her head off with a machete in broad daylight. Sets it on the hood of the car and simply gets back in his car and drives away. And he didn't even run when the cops came, because from his I mean, he thought that what he did was normal. And that's the whole point.
They call it an honor killing.
Well, exactly.
Honor killing. Folks, this is the kind of people that are infiltrating our society. I mean, this is these are not people that you peacefully coexist with, because, I mean, historically in America, what was required was that you come in, you subscribe to our way of law, our method of laws, you learn our language. But if you go into the south side of Minneapolis right now, it's like a different country. It's Sharia law.
Cops
they're putting their people into the legislatures to try to force the rest of us to recognize Sharia law as legitimate. And there's no peaceful coexistence whatsoever. If you drive down some of these streets, they're going to come out and start looking at you and escalating things very quickly.
I mean, there was a time when you were a Trumpian crazy, you were a racist, you were some kind of a hate monger to say this. Everybody is acknowledging this now. New York City has had such a problem in the last 3 months with Biden's immigration numbers flooding New York City that the mayor Adams is now demanding that the White House stop this. Kathy Hochul, the biggest witch on American soil today, in my opinion, is threatening legal action against the Biden White House because the numbers are so staggering that even New York State cannot possibly deal with this. Here's a photograph right here from one of the hotels. I think it's the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. These people are bussed in after they arrive at the southern border. They're given a cell phone, they're given cash, and they're told to check in sometime down the road. And they're placed on a bus that you and I pay for, and they're sent to cities like Manhattan, like Chicago, like Los Angeles. And sure, at first, all these radical lefties are like, oh, yeah, come on in. And then fast forward 3 weeks or fast forward 3 months, and they are terrified now. It is so bad right now in Rochester and Buffalo, New York in particular, that the governor, again, this is a blue state, mind you, not a red state where they actually have common sense. Governor Hochul has had to call out the National Guard because the sexual assaults against hotel employees and other women in these communities is so epidemic level high that law enforcement themselves cannot handle it. And you can Google it right now.
Put that picture back up once. Put that picture back up. What do you see there in that line of people that are all laying down there on the left-hand side? You see if these are refugees, what do you normally expect to see? You expect to see women. You expect to see children. Historically, in refugee lines, the men stay behind because they know there's only a certain number of people that are going to be accepted by the country you're trying to get into. And so because they care normally about their women and their kids, those are the people that you send first and say, here, you go get a better life, become Americans, pursue the American dream. I'm going to stay behind. I'm going to fight for what we used to stand for. You guys go. And if I can, I'll join you at some point down the road. When you see lines of people like that, these military-aged adult males, that's called an invasion. Those are invaders, not refugees. What, and the reason why, and a lot of people say, who are you guys to sit here and talk? Where'd you guys come from originally? Well, I'm German and Dutch, as are you, Aaron, obviously. But the reason why it worked so well for all the German, the Dutch, the Irish, the English, the whatever, to come here to America in the first place was because America didn't stand so much for different ethnic backgrounds as it stood for an idea. An idea of the individual freedom of the individual to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So anybody across the world who was getting those fundamentals attacked, they said, you know what? I can go there. I can join fellow people like myself, but we're going to go there. We're going to become Americans. That's the idea that I subscribe to. And it worked. It became this melting pot that actually worked because people wanted to become Americans because of the ideas that it represented. These people, those people laying there in that picture on the ground right there, no women and children included, they don't believe in the American ideal.
No.
They want to come here and force that bullshit, degenerate garbage down our throats.
And they're doing it
through violence.
Yeah, they're doing it. And that's why you have to have governors in blue states who are now daring publicly, not just privately, publicly telling Joe Biden, you have got to deal with this. We can't take this influx. We have not the manpower. We can't arrest them fast enough. We can't arrest them politically anyway, because these are like our protected citizens now. And as a result, these cities are being devoured. And this is not, I want to be clear on this, like, this is happening right now in real time. Chris, you and I were both in Manhattan in March for federal court against Kathy Hochul's gun control law out there. I mean, we had some of our kids. You and I both did. Yeah, Manhattan sucks, but I mean, we kind of liked walking around. We walked around at night around the World Trade Tower memorials and stuff. It did not seem unduly dangerous. It just didn't to us.
It's all rapidly changing.
That was in March, and you fast forward just a couple of months now, and I would not go back there right now with my kids, not even my oldest sons. Look at this picture. What kind of an idiot would go walking by these people and assume that everything is going to be A-okay? You'd be a madman. This is happening right now. And I guess my thought here...
another thing I have to throw in there, when you look at this picture, okay, these people are just laying there. They're waiting to receive something. But when you throw those other numbers of these other people that have probably less than good intentions, this is what those people laying there, that's the best case scenario, right? It can only get worse from there. So they go out and start to break laws. They go out there to start and loot and shoot and riot and these things. Chaos just unfolds like exponentially very quickly. And that's if we're not talking about some of these people being part of cells, sleeper cells, people who are coming in here to intentionally try to slit America's, cultural lifeblood.
Yeah, and every bit of this is on purpose. That's the whole point here. Yeah. Every bit of this is intentional. Biden's people want this to happen. They believe they benefit politically from larger voting blocks like this. They believe they benefit more. They create the chaos, then they create the cure, which of course is gun control. This is all intentional. They want this to happen. They want our country to be destabilized. And this is not going to stop on its own accord. It's just not going to quit. And I think back, you talk about national suicide. I think back to, it seems like a long time ago, but it's just a couple years ago, to the mostly peaceful protests of 2020 and 2021. Like we're talking about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And imagine those dynamics now with 70,000 people like this in the mix. Imagine what could happen going forward.
Oh my gosh!
You think it was bad to see St. Paul burn to the ground? That was just gasoline and matches. What if we have actual terrorists in these cliques of people now using big boy weapons to do real damage when the police have been ordered to withdraw? When the police have been told to stand down, when the National Guard backs out in these blue cities, because they backed out in St. Paul. Now in Georgia, they did not back out. They held the line because it's a red state. But in a blue state,
well, even in some of these red states, I mean, could think of like Columbus, Ohio, for example, Republican-controlled state in all levels of government. Every statewide office is held by a Republican. But you had Andrew Ginther, the Columbus mayor. He pulled the Columbus PD back. This happened in Cincinnati, Toledo, since Cleveland, all these different places, and that's just Ohio. They pull the police back, and all of a sudden you have these people running up and breaching the Ohio State House. I mean, like you said, these were just street thugs.
Right.
They're just
that's my point.
BLM losers.
Right. Right. That's my whole point. These are just like a bunch of street thugs. Granted, they're dangerous, no question about that. But these are not people bent on terrorism. They're not people who are trying to get a body count. They're there to create chaos. They did create chaos. They rode a wave, but that wave was contained to a certain degree. How do you contain crowds like this? How do you contain people with overt hostile actions, with training, with actual weapons? This is a thing we have not had to contemplate in our country before. That's my point here, is that, as we were discussing yesterday, this is not a risk that we had to talk about in our personal conversations, let alone our national lexicon in our lifetime. And things are different now than they have been ever before. And I think we need to be very cognizant of this as individual people. A lot of times we always encourage members to give us your support, help us fight for your gun rights in state capitals and to stop gun control in Congress. And we'll ask you to keep doing that. But I would just say for today, this is much more personal for me than it was 2 weeks ago, just by watching the news. And I would just take your donation that you have in mind today for the American Firearms Association, one of our state affiliates. Take that money and go buy some ammo. Go buy some 5.56. And I want to be clear, 5.56 or 308, not 9mm, not 22. Go buy yourself some rifle ammo. Go buy yourself a rifle. Go buy yourself some more PMags, the ones with windows, because we're in a different time. It's a different time now.
Yes,
what's
absolutely. That? I said one of these BCMs.
Oh yeah. I see you get yours. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And then once you have the guns and ammo, folks, please go find some neighbors and train together.
Yep.
Train together about what you guys can do to protect your neighborhoods and to fight back against this stuff. Because guns and ammo are great, but you need to know how to use them and use them well, especially with other people. That makes the safety and security of your loved ones far more a sure thing. So yeah, absolutely go do that today. Go buy guns and ammo.
In the meantime, folks, just remember, nothing that you're seeing right now on the news is happening on accident. None of this just popped into Joe Biden's lap. This is an intentional action to sabotage the internal security of our country. And I do not think, no one believes that this damage and these mobs will be limited to Chicago, to New York City, to Rochester, Los Angeles, to Denver. These people will spread, and we're going to see down the road the types of things that become more common in this country that in the past have been common only in third world hellholes. And it's going to become more common here. Our society is devolving internally because of our own worldview, because of our government schools and what they have turned out. But now you add to that all of this dynamic, and it's a much different situation than it has been before. So we're going to redouble our efforts to defend your gun rights in state capitals and in Congress. But just be aware of these things, guys. Take action for your own personal self-defense, and we'll keep you guys informed. Take care and have a great day.
Stay free.